Hi everybody, it's Kim from Patriot Garden. When I had just a Facebook page and not a YouTube channel, I used to post pictures of what was blooming in the garden and what was happening. So I figured I'd just take you around on a garden tour. There's just some things that we've planted, there's some things that have started to bloom, and I just thought I'd share everything with you. Okay, so I'm here in the side perennial garden. There's actually a lot going on here. A lot of columbine, some tulips, some allium. I want to introduce you to my mother's roses, and I want to show you what I did with my lilac trees. I'm not exactly sure I did the right thing, so if anybody has any suggestions or comments, please help a girl out. All right, let's start here with this lilac. Now, as you can see, I chopped these lilacs down. They were so tall. I've actually heard that lilacs can be invasive to a structure. I'm not sure I did the right thing, but they seem to be blooming here and there. This one looks the best out of all four. As you can see, this one over here is just kind of blooming at the top and some on the side. So I think some of it will survive. I'm not sure all of it will survive. And when we get down to the end of the perennial bed, I'll show you where I think maybe I did it in. Now these are my mother's roses. I call them that because I have no clue what kind of roses they are. They grow huge. They will cover this trellis and they'll be full with blossoms. And then I'll cut them right down and I'll get a second blooming. I have two rose plants, one here and one on that trellis, and I'm rooting some for the front. We have lots of lilies that are coming up and lots of hosta. And some hosta that I did not even plant. I think those are volunteers. And there's another volunteer stuck right over there. Oh, and here's some more over here. It's coming up everywhere. I don't mind. I like this to look very overgrown and like a woodland garden. We have allium and tulip. They don't seem to all bloom at the same time, but they'll get there. And then the pride of this garden is all the columbine that self-seeds. It's everywhere. It's all along this path. There's some very tall ones over here and over there. They self-seed. They're loaded with pink flowers when they bloom, and I'll show you. And they're absolutely gorgeous. Now growing in amongst the columbine and the stepping stones is this Chinese sedum. It is a low ground cover. It'll have red flowers in the fall. It really is beautiful. But it will take over a garden, and it will grow in places that you never actually planted it. So as you can see, there's that Chinese sedum is starting to pop up all over the pathway, which is beautiful. I'll take it. And then more lilies and more of Mom's roses. And some irises are coming up. So there's a few trellises that I have with clematis growing, or clematis, however you say it. They always look like they're going to die. They look like they're dead and brown, and then all of a sudden the leaves come and then the flowers come. You can see the top of it over here is really healthy looking. So it'll be back. It's just beginning to start now. It'll be surrounded by daylilies, and there's some really awesomely big hosta that's just starting to come up now here. Now this lilac may have suffered a little being pruned, but I see some signs of hope. There's some leafing happening here. Buds are coming out, and there's some leafing down there. And then this one also doesn't look too good. However, there are some signs of hope. I see some leaves coming here. I see some leaves coming here. And I might be able to get something out of this. I'll just give it some time and some patience and a little fertilizer. We also have this perennial garden. This will have sedum. This will have daylilies. There's hosta in here. There's beautiful ferns. And most of the summer it will be covered with bee balm. As you can see, the clematis is starting to come back to life. Never be discouraged by what you see in the early spring. That doesn't mean anything. The leaves and the plants will come back and the flowers will be beautiful. And this is one of my favorite spring flowers, is creeping myrtle. They have these beautiful purple blossoms. We'll have some lily of the valley in here at some point. It just hasn't started to bloom yet. Now, the creeping myrtle was covering this perennial bed completely, and then over the winter this happened. So I'm not sure. This patch I pulled from the front to put here and see if it'll take, and fingers crossed that it will. There is a small rose bush in here that I pruned down to almost nothing, and one more clematis coming on that trellis. Our side bed has more allium and rhubarb and chives. Now we'll go take a look at the garden. We'll see what's growing and what's waiting to be transplanted. So now we're in my little hoop house so that you can see what is hardening off here. Hardening off, for those of you who have never started from seedlings, is the process of getting your seedlings acclimated to the outside before you put them in your garden. I'm lucky enough to have the hoop house so I can get things in here for a week or so before they go into the garden, and they're kept safe from the rain, they're kept safe from the cold. Remember, I told you we had 2 nights of freezing temperatures this week, and these guys did great in here. So the seedlings that are hardening off in here are sunflower. That pea plant was one that I had grown in the plastic bag on the window, so I've got to get that in the garden. There's also some zinnia. There's some cabbage. There's marigolds over here, and then more zinnias. And they actually made it through 25-degree weather this week. I actually had another piece of plastic that I laid over them just to keep them safe. But they're getting sunlight in here. They're getting at least filtered sunlight. And I leave the door open to the greenhouse so that they can get some cooler temperatures. They can get a breeze. They're just getting acclimated to being outside after having been in the basement for a few weeks. I pruned my fig tree down. I noticed some of the branches weren't doing great, so I pruned it down and fertilized it. My raspberries are really starting to show great signs of life, so I'll separate them and get them in the row, but it's not quite time for that. I'm eating out of that one little spinach plant that survived the chicken attack. It's really good spinach, and my garlic is just exploding. It is so much fun to watch that. I'm going to leave that in here as long as it will take the humidity and the heat in here. Okay, there's my comfrey plant. I am pulling out shoots that start to encroach on the garden. It's real easy to pull out the shoots. The comfrey plant doesn't get bothered by it, and it'll keep it in this one corner. So I just kind of yank them out, and that'll keep that comfrey plant fairly well contained in that corner. It'll get very tall, and it has the most beautiful purple flowers when it blooms. Plus, my chickens love the leaves, and they are an awesome source of protein for them. Today I threw in some onions, and as you can see, I stopped before they got to the peas because I don't think onions and peas get along too well. So I figured I would take advantage of the fact that this is going to be the tomato bed, and that's a great companion planting. However, I want to keep it away from the peas. Then, of course, the radishes are coming nicely. I'm not thinning them. I think radishes will do just fine. They'll push against each other and then push up. They're going to be a very early crop, and then I will put something in their place. This bed almost looks a mess, but it's not really a mess. There's a lot going on. You can see a lot of the carrots are starting to sprout. There's some second-year carrots that I'm going to leave and let sprout, and they will give me my seeds for next year. The beets are doing great. These taller plants are beets that I started in those soil blocks, and then these are the beets that are starting to come up now from seed. And this last row here that you can see is starting to come up. Those are rutabagas. And nothing in here was bothered by the cold temperatures. Of course, I had the cold frame, and they all stayed really healthy. Beets are a great all-weather crop. As long as the soil is nice and fluffy, they'll take almost any temperature. I'm really excited about the peas. They're going to grow up and over this trellis and hopefully meet the peas that are growing on the other side. And then behind me I have the same setup. And more radishes. And again, onions, but I didn't bring them anywhere near the peas. Now my overwintered crops. My overwintered kale is doing beautifully. And my lettuce is coming up. And we've been eating out of the overwintered red lettuce, green lettuce. There's more red lettuce over there. and the chard, the overwintered chard we've been eating from, and we have some pak choi. Actually, I think that's bok choy that's coming up right now. I also sow that fairly thickly, and it does really well. I don't try to put a single seed in a row. Overwintered chard, and as you can see, some dandelions. Now, I am the person who does not cut her lawn until the dandelions have finished. Dandelions are a great source of food for the bees, and of course we need the bees. And the dandelion leaves I leave because they are edible, and when I come out here to pick a salad, I just pick some of the dandelion leaves with it. And then over here is more chard that's coming up really nicely. Now, I've never tried mustard greens, but I did start some indoors. They're growing a little slower than I thought. Maybe they're not crazy about these cold temperatures. It is a southern plant, so maybe with the heat of the spring coming, they will grow, and we can try those and see if we like them. These are very pretty. These are lettuce flowers. This is from the overwintered lettuce that sprouted up and then immediately went to seed, went to flower. So they'll give me seeds for next year's lettuce. Now, in the water jugs that I started in the winter, we started cilantro and parsley, and today I just put them in the pot. They're really a cool weather plant, so I'm going to let them grow until they're not happy anymore, and then I'll harvest and freeze or harvest and dry. And then in the fall, we'll try again. We'll grow some more. Now, the other new thing that's going on here, there's actually a lot going on here. We have the 10 new chicks, the 10 new meat chicks down in the basement. We have these brand new hens here that are going to get integrated with my 4 old girls in the flock. There was just a little tussle between one and the other. The hope is that they will do their little jostling for pecking order, which is natural with chickens. You'll see them lock their beaks. You'll see them go at each other with their talons, but there should be no blood. If there's blood, we have a problem. If they continuously pick on another one, we may have a problem. But this is the new girl's first outing outside of that fenced-in area. And that chicken tractor is what the meat chickens will go into when they are old enough. So these girls have to get integrated in the next few weeks so that they're all happy and content in the run together during the day. So while we're waiting to see what happens with the hens, there's absolutely nothing happening in this bed. I have 3 of my types of sunflowers growing here, but with the last 2 nights of freezing, the seeds are probably taking their time. Now, this is the old flock, and the new flock is right over here. So I see that they're noticing that the new girls are coming around. I don't know what's going to happen, but at some point they need to meet each other. Well, there weren't that many problems. The new girls stuck to themselves. Hello. Hello. She's never come near me before. Still a little skittish. Hi, girl. I think this is the one that we named RBG because she's got a collar like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, so that's my Friday night. It's almost time for me to put myself back in as soon as I make sure the girls know where they're going. So have a great weekend, everybody, and happy gardening.